Deborah by Ginzberg. Not long after Ruth, another ideal woman arose in Israel, the prophetess Deborah. When Ehud died, there was none to take his place as judge, and the people fell off from God and his law. God, therefore, sent an angel to them with the following message: Out of all the nations on earth, I chose a people for myself, and I thought, so long as the world stands, my glory will rest upon them. I sent Moses unto them, my servant, to teach them goodness and righteousness, but they strayed from my ways. And now I will arouse their enemies against them, to rule over them, and they will cry out, Because we forsook the ways of our fathers, hath this come over us. Then I will send a woman unto them, and she will shine for them as a light for 40 years. 70. The enemy whom God raised up against Israel was Jabin, 71, the king of Hazor, who oppressed him sorely. But worse than the king himself was his general Sisera, one of the greatest heroes known to history. When he was 30 years old, he had conquered the whole world. At the sound of his voice, the strongest of walls fell in a heap, and the wild animals in the woods were chained to the spot by fear. The proportions of his body were vast beyond description. If he took a bath in the river and dived beneath the surface, enough fish were caught in his beard to feed a multitude, and it required no less than 900 horses to draw the chariot in which he rode. 72. To rid Israel of this tyrant, God appointed Deborah and her husband Barak. Barak was an ignoramus, like most of his contemporaries. It was a time singularly deficient to scholars. 73. In order to do something meritorious in connection with the divine service, he carried candles, at his wife's instance, to the sanctuary, wherefrom he was called Lipidoth, flames. Deborah was in the habit of making the wicks on the candles very thick, so that they might burn a long time. Therefore God distinguished her. He said, Thou takest pains to shed light in my house, and I will let thy light, thy flame, shine abroad in the whole land. Thus it happened that Deborah became a prophetess and a judge. She dispensed judgment in the open air, for it was not becoming that men should visit a woman in her house. 74. Prophetess though she was yet subject to the frailties of her sex. Her self-consciousness was inordinate. She sent for Barak, 75, to come to her instead of going to him, 76, and in her song she spoke more of herself than was seemly. The result was that the prophetical spirit departed from her for a time while she was composing her song. 77. The salvation of Israel was effected only after the people, assembled on the Mount of Judah, had confessed their sins publicly before God and besought his help. A 7 days fast was proclaimed for men and women, for young and old. Then God resolved to help the Israelites, not for their sakes, but for the sake of keeping the oath he had sworn to their forefathers, never to abandon their seed. Therefore he sent Deborah unto them. 78. The task allotted to Deborah and Barak to lead the attack upon Sisera was by no means slight. It is comparable with nothing less than Joshua's undertaking to conquer Canaan. Joshua had triumphed over only 31 of the 62 kings of Palestine, leaving at large as many as he had subdued. Under the leadership of Sisera, these 31 unconquered kings opposed Israel. 79, no less than 40,000 armies, each counting 100,000 warriors, were arrayed against Deborah and Barak. 80 God aided Israel with water and fire. The river Kishon and all the fiery hosts of heaven, 81, except the star Meroz, 82, fought against Sisera. The Kishon had long before been pledged to play its part in Sisera's overthrow. When the Egyptians were drowned in the Red Sea, God commanded the angel of the sea to cast their corpses on the land, that the Israelites might convince themselves of the destruction of their foes, and those of little faith might not say afterward that the Egyptians, like the Israelites, had reached dry land. The angel of the sea complained of the impropriety of withdrawing a gift. God mollified him with the promise of future compensation. The Kishon was offered as security that he would receive half as many bodies again as he was now giving up. When Sisera's troops sought relief from the scorching fire of the heavenly bodies in the coolness of the waters of the Kishon, God commanded the river to redeem its pledge. And so the heathen were swept down into the sea by the waves of the river Kishon, whereat the fishes in the sea exclaimed, And the truth of the Lord endureth forever. 83. Sisera's lot was no better than the lot of the men. He fled from the battle on horseback, 84, after witnessing the annihilation of his vast army. When Jael saw him approach, she went to meet him arrayed in rich garments and jewels. She was unusually beautiful, and her voice was the most seductive ever a woman possessed. 85. These are the words she addressed to him. Enter and refresh thyself with food, and sleep until evening, and then I will send my attendants with thee to accompany thee, for I know thou wilt not forget me, and thy recompense will not fail. When Sisera, on stepping into her tent, saw the bed strewn with roses which Jael had prepared for him, he resolved to take her home to his mother as his wife, as soon as his safety should be assured. He asked her for milk to drink, saying, My soul burns with the flame which I saw in the stars contending for Israel. Jael went forth to milk her goat, meantime supplicating God to grant her his help. I pray to thee, O Lord, to strengthen thy maidservant against the enemy. By this token shall I know that thou wilt aid me if, when I enter the house, Sisera will awaken and ask for water to drink. Scarcely had Jael crossed the threshold when Sisera awakened and begged for water to quench his burning thirst. Jael gave him wine mixed with water, which caused him to drop into a sound sleep again. The woman then took a wooden spike in her left hand, approached the sleeping warrior, and said, This shall be the sign that thou wilt deliver him into my hand, if I draw him from the bed down on the ground without awaking him. She tugged at Sisera, and in very truth he did not awaken even when he dropped from the bed to the floor. Then Jael prayed, O God, strengthen the arm of thy maidservant this day, for thy sake, for the sake of thy people, and for the sake of those that hope in thee. With a hammer she drove the spike into the temple of Sisera, who cried out as he was expiring, Oh, that I should lose my life by the hand of a woman. Jael's mocking retort was, Descend to hell and join thy fathers, and tell them that thou didst fall by the hand of a woman. 86. Barak took charge of the body of the dead warrior, and he sent it to Sisera's mother, Themach, 87, with the message, Here is thy son, whom thou didst expect to see returning laden with booty. He had in mind the vision of Themach and her women-in-waiting. When Sisera went forth to battle, their conjuring tricks had shown him to them as he lay on the bed of a Jewish woman. This they had interpreted to mean that he would return with Jewish captives. 1 damsel, 2 damsels for every man. 88 they had said. Great, therefore, was the disappointment of Sisera's mother. No less than 100 cries did she utter over him. 89. Deborah and Barak thereupon intoned a song of praise, thanking God for the deliverance of Israel out of the power of Sisera, and reviewing the history of the people since the time of Abraham. 90. After laboring for the weal of her nation for 40 years, Deborah departed this life. Her last words to the weeping people were an exhortation not to depend upon the dead. They can do nothing for the living. So long as a man is alive, his prayers are efficacious for himself and for others. They avail not once he is dead. The whole nation kept a 70 days period of mourning in honor of Deborah, and the land was at peace for 7 years. 91.